You're watching Things I Think I Know About the Browns. That's Quincy Carrier. I'm Brad Ward. All right, let's talk. I want to talk about Jalen Milroe real quick. So, we saw Milroe at the combine, and we know, the reason it's worth talking about is the link to the Browns with their offensive coordinator, obviously, right?
Did you
And
say link or lake?
like, oh my gosh. Yes, and so obviously we know his coach is our offensive coordinator from Alabama. He coached him for a year, and so it's something to watch, right? And like at the combine, it was clear that he was in the middle of like working through some stuff. He looked very uncomfortable.
Senior Bowl as well.
Yeah, Senior Bowl as well. He was working through like some coaching, right? It was pretty clear. We talked about this before a little bit, and he's been working with Jordan Palmer. And he came out at his pro day the other day. And he looked really good, and he purposely took a ton of under center reps. He looked really good throwing the ball. His motion looked smooth. And I think he probably raised his value for some teams just seeing him work under center like that, and that his motion looked not the way it did before, but it looked more closer to a finished project. Now, certainly it takes more reps than that to become, you know what I mean? It's going to take time for that to become who he is as a passer. But it was an impressive pro day. And we know the kind of freak athlete that he is. As you talked about before when we were talking off air, he ran like a 4.37 at quarterback, right?
Mhm.
And I think, as you said, he has like no body fat on him at like 217. He is a freak, right? So, the interesting thing as well to mention here is like the Steelers took him out to dinner the night before the pro day. Tomlin took him out to dinner. And then he came perform. So the Steelers team, and then I've also seen some rumors that the Steelers are willing to take a swing on quarterback at what would be 21 if the guy there they like is there, whether that be Dart or Milroe, if you think they could go that high. So I just kind of want to get your thoughts on, do you think the Browns are in on Milroe because of their coaching staff? And have they been following this process closely? You know what I mean, with Palmer and the work he's been doing, and then seeing it kind of bear some fruit at his pro day is a positive thing for sure. And how much more intriguing does he become for the Browns? And then, would they have to move up to get in front of 21 to get him? Or do you think he's just a second-round prospect?
I think he's a second-round prospect. Or at least that's why I feel comfortable, at the highest spending on him. Jalen Milroe is fascinating to me because he seems like, remember, this is going to make me feel old because it doesn't feel that long ago, Brad. You remember the Senior Bowl Russell Wilson had back in the day?
Oh, yeah.
I just made myself sound so old.
I remember.
To a segment of the audience. But yeah, Russell Wilson, way back in the 2012 draft process, which wasn't very long. Kirk Cousins was in that draft as well, right?
Yeah.
I remember after the Senior Bowl hearing, oh man, Russell Wilson, he's just the best. Like, people loved his personality. It's ironic now because Russell Wilson's kind of seen as this arbitrage that nobody wants to deal with. But back in 2012, fresh out of college, everybody loved Russell Wilson, the interviews that they were in. I think he was like 23, 24. So he was a grown-ass man at that point compared to like the rest of the kids he was coming out with.
They didn't know it was an act at that point. They didn't know it was all phony at that point.
To be fair, I think we preferred that too in that era, right? Like, that was at the beginning of the whole, like, you don't want your athletes to say anything interesting, right? Like, we had just got done with like the Chad Johnsons and the Ed Reeds of the world, and the Terrell Owens, right? And there was a call for like more of a conservative attitude for some of these athletes, or a business-minded approach for these athletes. That was like heavily, like the 30 for 30 broke came out, right? That people understand how much that changed stuff, right? Because that's when all the financial stuff happened and people tell you protect the bag, all this stuff that's like you don't even think about being there now. That wasn't really there in like 2010, right? In the way that it is now. And the money's gotten bigger, right? But at 2012, that's right when that transition happened. Everybody was in front office like, oh, this guy's corporate. We like this guy right now. It's starting to be a backlash because we've lived through 10 years of really boring athletes. And we kind of want something more fun back again.
For sure. Yeah.
So he was at the right point of that pendulum swing, and people loved him and everything else like that. I wonder, like, if Milroe kind of gets the opposite end of that, because he's a really professional guy. This is a guy who has a master's degree in business, right? Like, he understands how to work a meeting, all this stuff. Also, a master's degree in this is third year in college football. He's a redshirt sophomore. He's a redshirt junior, right? So 4 years in college, has a master's degree. This guy's work ethic is insane. Like, I know people joke about, oh, college athletes, this and that. Most college athletes don't leave with a degree. He left with a master's degree in 4 years. This dude works super hard. The whole thing about the hand size measurement, right?
Yeah.
Like, that increasing from under 9 to well above the threshold.
Crazy.
In order to do that, for those of you who don't know, you have to go through, it's basically workouts that you do that are specifically focused on your hand, because the way they measure it is it goes from thumb to index, right? So you're basically widening that area with stretching and all this stuff. That's a very intensive process.
Yeah.
He was able to do that so well, right, that he got to where he is. I mean, his body, right? Like, it's a demonstration of that work ethic that he has. How many dudes you know just in college, Brad? Like, you just go to college, can get a master's degree in 4 years and look like Jalen Milroe. Like, they don't even got to play football. Like, that's so hard to do, right? Like, this guy's doing like 4 or 5 jobs in college. Very hard worker. Now, you might be asking me, why does that matter, Quincy? He plays football. Like, it's great that he works hard, but everybody's supposed to work hard. Well, this guy's going to have to work really, really hard to be good in the NFL because he's going to have to change a lot, right?
Yeah.
And if you want somebody to do the Josh Allen type leap, well, I need somebody to demonstrate that they're willing to put in the Josh Allen type work, the Drew Brees type work, the Tom Brady type work. This dude, like, I think him and Shedeur Sanders probably the two guys who probably spend the most time training of all of these quarterbacks, and it shows. Like, Shedeur Sanders is just like a textbook. Like, you can tell he's been coached since he's 14, and he's done all that extra stuff, right? Jalen Milroe, sometimes I felt like he got overcoached at Alabama, and this is a dude who had so many offensive coordinators, right? So he's getting told to do one thing his freshman year. Bill O'Brien comes in, tells him to do another thing, tells him, I don't even see you as a quarterback, right? Then you get Tommy Rees come in there. He commits to you at quarterback, even though you had to battle it out with a bunch of other guys. You finally get your own year, but now it's Kalen DeBoer, right? Like 4 different all offensive coordinators. This guy's working really hard, and you can just see it on the field, the indecisiveness that pops up. That's one concern I have with Jalen, right?
Yeah.
He's such a hard worker. He's so willing to put in the work. Has he put in so much work with so many different offenses that he can't get things straight when it comes to making those surefire, quick decisions, right?
Yeah.
Are we always going to see that with him? Is that something that he can shake off in the NFL? If this were just about pure work ethic, I would bet on the kid, because I believe in this dude. Like, you get that sense when you just see how hard this guy works. So you just want to bet on this guy. The problem is,
person. Yeah. The person,
but the tape can be so erratic, right? Yeah. Like, the comp for him that a lot of people want to throw out is Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts, significantly better quarterback in college than Jalen Milroe. Jalen Hurts can make his layups. The issue with Jalen is that he just couldn't throw the ball downfield very well. We still see that in the NFL, and why he needs those 2 wide receivers to have an explosive pass game. But Jalen can hit those layups, right? Jalen can stay ahead of the sticks. He's a really good game manager.
He was more polished. Yeah.
Jalen's not a good game manager. Like, I think you can throw this quarterback class into 2 piles: good game managers, not so good game managers, right? Cam Ward, Jalen Milroe are in that pile of, like, guys that don't manage the game pretty well, that don't manage the game well, right? Shedeur does a decent job of it. Best game manager in this class is like a Will Howard, right? And then Jackson Dart, I would put him in the other pile where I don't think he manages the game super well or super efficiently. So with Milroe, that's a big question there of, like, hey, can you hit your layups? Because with Cam Ward, he doesn't manage the game well because he chooses not to, right? Yeah. Which is a different thing that I'm not willing to deal with. But Jalen Milroe, it's not that he doesn't choose to, it's that he just doesn't sometimes make the throws that would make his life easier on second down because he's not consistent with his feet, or because he's overthinking it, or he's hesitating to pull a trigger there, right? He's taking sacks. That's what makes him get in these bad situations, get behind the sticks or something like that. So, if there is a can you fix it guy in this draft, it's Jalen Milroe.
Yeah.
I think a real conversation needs to be had about how high his floor is and how high his ceiling is, because I do think that his ceiling is not as high as people make it out to be. I think people act like this dude could be the best quarterback in football. I don't think that's the case. I think he'd be what Colin Kaepernick was, right? Which was like good enough to get to a Super Bowl, an impact player, maybe a shorter peak, right? But some of the same pitfalls Jalen Milroe has, you can see in Colin Kaepernick. Remember how Colin just threw lasers 100% of the time, right? That has its downfall. You need to throw a changeup in the NFL every once in a while, right? He does not have a changeup to his game. Everything you watch him at the combine, some of those passes were dropped because he was just throwing missiles, right? Really high spin. It's a similar thing with DTR, where like DTR just puts too much on it all the time. That's the thing that Jalen Milroe has, right? I think the question with Jalen is how much time do you have to dedicate to it, right? How many resources do you have to dedicate? How patient are you willing to be? Because he could be Colin Kaepernick, a Pro Bowl level quarterback who can break the game open with his legs and you can commit to him and do things like that. He could be Tyrod Taylor, right? In Buffalo, where he's a really good athlete, somebody who could throw on the run really well, a guy who could really beat zone coverage because that's where he gets to think. I think he's a very intelligent guy. But man coverage, he's not accurate enough to really beat man coverage, right? Like, I think that's going to be his downfall. Or he could be somebody who's just like, Kellen Mond, who's like, oh, man, this project's fun, but it just never worked out. Right.
But the Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson for you is not in the realm of outcomes.
Hell no. He's not there yet. He's not 6'5" like Josh Allen. He's not naturally just effortlessly big, right? Like Drew Aller, somebody who has that Josh Allen size trait, where Drew Aller is effortlessly 245, 6'5", and can throw the ball without moving a butt cheek. Right, like that is how effortless it is with Drew Aller and Josh Allen, right? That's not the case with Jalen. I don't think Jalen has really strong physical traits, but they're upper tier starting quarterback, maybe like short-term franchise like run type quarterback traits to me. I don't think they are Lamar Jackson, right? Like, and again, like think about how good Lamar was in college to beat Lamar Jackson.
Yeah.
At a young age, right? Lamar was 21 years old when he came into the NFL, and pretty much right away was a winning quarterback in the league. You can't develop into that, right? Like
he has
that
a
doesn't happen.
Touch to his game that isn't there with Milroe for sure.
Milroe, you're gonna have to manufacture it. I think is the point here. You're gonna have to build some things around him, not just with talent, but you're gonna have to build a system for him that works and puts 100%. Him there. Because sometimes with Milroe, what falls apart is if the plan goes down, he goes down. Like the reason I think this could be intriguing for Kevin Stefanski. This dude's really good on scripted plays, right? Like when he has that script and things are going according to plan, Jalen Milroe's incredible. Like that's what happened in the Georgia game, right?
Yeah, he knows where to look. Yeah,
and if Kevin gets him in that script, he gets him going to plan. He could be successful. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if we're talking about, man, Jalen looks so different on that first drive versus, what he does the rest of the game, because it's kind of that similar thing. There's a little bit of like, it's not as bad as DTR, but like DTR had a similar thing about him. And I think the parallels between these two might be why they favor him, because they've already drafted somebody who skill set wise, they're a little bit different, right?
Yeah.
Body type wise, they're completely different, but intangible wise, they're very similar and like on these very small things along the edges. But DTR, right? When he was working that script in the preseason, or even like when he came in and he got a script for those first couple of drives, like his first drive against Cincinnati this year was pretty good. It was the second, third drives that killed you, right? He was fine. He was doing pretty good there. He could follow the script well. Now, obviously, Jalen Milroe can throw the ball downfield way better than DTR can, so you're not going to be as limited there. But I think there's a similar type of style there where it's like, hey, going to somebody like Kevin for Jalen under the control of Kevin and offensive coordinators, like, it's probably the best situation for him. Yeah. And if you're going to get something out of him in his rookie deal, it probably would be in Cleveland. Like, I think that would be the best chance for it to happen is in Cleveland. My worry with Jalen is that he's somebody who's just not going to be very effective in his rookie deal, and the team that gets him next is going to benefit more from the work that you put into him.
Yep. That's a legitimate concern for sure. It's just intriguing with the Tommy Rees stuff, and you know the Steelers' interest is intriguing too. So I thought it was worth bringing that up because as you pointed out, I totally agree with you. Like if I had to bet on him, the person, I would bet on him finding a way to find some level of success, right? Just because of the hard work, the kid that he is. He's a good leader, he's proven all that stuff, and it's just about kind of, getting better at playing the position and throwing and at the next level. And it's going to require some coaching and a lot of work, but that seems to not be an issue with him. So I do think he could be better than like Jalen Hurts, don't you?
I think I don't want to put that on him.
Or you think that's about where he could be, his ceiling?
Because I don't think his game, like, I understand why people go to Jalen Hurts, but I don't think it's going to look the same for Jalen Milroe if it works as it does for Jalen Hurts. If you get what I'm saying.
Yeah. Yeah. They're not
because they're similar because they're both big bodies. They're both about 6'1", 6'2", and they both can run really, really well. But I think Jalen Hurts is a lot different in how he gets that success going versus Jalen Milroe. I think Jalen Milroe, you're going to rely on some explosive plays with him because he can rip it downfield more often, and his best throws are downfield throws. The issue with Jalen is that you're probably going to see a lot of 3-and-outs with Milroe than you would with like Jalen Hurts, because he's going to miss some layups, right? Like there's going to be times where he misses layups because he's just not very good at them, right? Or intermediate throws, right? I think it's just going to have to look different for him than it does with Jalen Hurts. So I don't know if better than Jalen Hurts is there, but I think you can have him be in a similar tier to where Jalen Hurts is for maybe a year or two, or at least like a tier that you can reasonably think if you have enough around him, you can get to a conference championship game with. But that's the high end, best case scenario stuff. That's not like what's the most likely with him, right?
Yeah.
And I think the difference between Jalen Milroe and Jalen Hurts is Jalen Hurts had a fairly good chance to be what Jalen Hurts is today, especially in Philadelphia. I don't think the chance that Jalen Milroe gets to where Jalen Hurts is as likely as it was for Jalen Hurts when he came out the draft, if that makes sense.
Sure. Let's finish with this question then, just to put you on the spot real quick. All right, say in the first round of the draft, Shedeur and Cam Ward come off the board. You are the Browns at 33, and you are committed to taking a quarterback there. Let's say you have to take a quarterback there. Who are you taking?
At 33?
Yeah, the top two options are gone. Shedeur, Cam are gone. So you got Dart, you've got Howard, you've got all the names. Shuck, you've got.
Yeah. If I gotta take somebody at 33, I'm gonna want the upside there, right? Yeah. Like I think if I could trade back or something like that, maybe Will Howard comes into play.
Yeah.
But if I got to take somebody there, I got to go with the upside there. And between Will Howard and Jalen Milroe, I think Will Howard's upside is I think he could be Andy Dalton. And I think Jalen Milroe, he could be somewhere between Tyrod Taylor and Colin Kaepernick with the 49ers. So given that, I would have to go Jalen Milroe there, even though I don't think it's likely that Jalen becomes a starter as will. But I think in our situation, there's a better chance than normal of that being able to work because I think he's a locker room fit, scheme fit. You got a coach in there. And if Tommy Rees is like, especially if Tommy Rees is saying, no, this guy, just go draft this guy. If your offensive coordinator has buy-in, then I think that makes you feel a lot better about taking him at 33 as well.
100%. Take the Browns out of it now. Is he QB3 for you?
Yeah, he's there's Shador, who I think I do like a little bit more than Cam Ward, just for and then there's Cam, who I understand why people are excited about, but like I just have some flaws with this game that I can't personally get over, right? Like it might just be a flaw with me, right? But enough people think he's good to where I'm not going to rank him like super low, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I get the ick when I watch Cam Ward play, but maybe that's just me, right? You know, it happened with me with other guys before, and we'll see what happens with Cam Ward. So I get the ick with Cam Ward, but he's number 2. Number 3, it's really a toss-up between where you're selecting, right? If you're at 33, you kind of have to go Milroe because you need to get the upside there. If we're talking about somewhere after like pick 50, okay, then like I think Will Howard would be the better selection there, right? So it's kind of a tie between those for QB3 for me. I like Will Howard. I like Jalen Milroe. I'm not a huge fan of Jackson Dart or Tyler Shuck, who's like 25. At this been played one full season of college football. I'm just not there yet with these guys in the back end here. But I think both these guys have the potential to be starters. I think the distinction is that Jalen Milroe has a chance to give you what you would expect first round level success from a quarterback, where I think Will Howard likely going to be a very strong backup to a low-level starter in the NFL, which, I mean, both would be preferable to where we're at right now. We're about to start Kenny Pickett if we do nothing with this quarterback room, but we will, right? It's a long time between now and September. I think it really does matter where you are position-wise, and also, you know, there are some things I can't project here, right? Is Tommy Rees in there actually like really going to bat for Jalen Milroe? Yeah, like, because if he is, then like that automatically raises him, because I'm like, hey, this dude spent real time with Jalen Milroe, real insight with him, and he really thinks there's something he can do there. Then, you know, that's better for me than like trying to project whether Will Howard can do it. So, okay, cool. We'll take, you know, that you hired Tommy, you promoted him. He's been in this building for 2 years now. Well, on his second year. So, you know, if he's pounding the table telling you that he thinks this guy could be something in the NFL, and that we need to bet on this guy, and that he's not that far away, and that, you know, what happened to him last year was more about changing offenses continuously. Okay, you know, cool, let's do it, right? But, you know, if we're in there and Tommy Rees is like, I can understand why people would like him. It's like, oh, all right, then we're going to take Will Howard, right? Or somebody else like that. You know, so I think that part matters way more than like even the evaluations you could get on all 22, right? It really depends on how Tommy Rees is shaking. I think when it comes to what the Browns do at 33, I think Tommy Rees is going to play a huge role in that, because the thumbs up, thumbs like Batista, right? With evolution, the thumbs up, thumbs down, right? Like what we going to get from Tommy Rees here.
Exactly, right?
So we'll see.
All right. Very good stuff, as always. Quincy Carrier, follow him on Twitter at Quinn_C. Killing it here tonight on things I think I know about the Cleveland Browns. Keep it locked to DOBR all week here for Quincy. My name is Brad. Have a wonderful evening.